the MAGA Republican Congress member getting booed right there for his and Donald Trump and Elon Musk and all the other MAGA Republicans' actions at Keith Self's town hall, as he was mercilessly booed, but as other MAGA Republicans across the country were mercilessly booed.
Did you know Trump's proposed budget cuts $880 billion from Medicaid while he spends his days hitting golf balls? Let that sink in. The same guy who promised to protect healthcare is swinging clubs while planning to rip medical care away from millions of Americans. Meanwhile, the people are speaking up. From WWE events in Canada to town halls in Texas, the boos are getting louder.
WWE held an event, and during the singing of the national anthem, guess what you heard? More boos. I mean, Donald Trump continues to threaten annexation. Donald Trump said that on Monday he will reinstate or put in place, who even knows with him, the tariffs that he threatened 30 days ago. Of course, the people are going to boo, and in Canada, they are currently boycotting pretty much all things American, boycotting.
Trump and his allies can't go anywhere without hearing what regular folks really think of them. The orange turd is finally getting the reception he deserves, and we've got all the juicy footage. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now, back to the video. Is Donald Trump collecting boos instead of votes these days? Because everywhere the MAGA movement shows up, it seems like regular folks are showing them the door with a symphony of disapproval. I mean, seriously, Trump's popularity is dropping faster than his golf handicap rises. Let's start with what happened in Texas last week. And this is truly spectacular. Republican Congressman Keith Self held a town hall in his deep red district, and oh boy, did it go south fast. This is a district Trump won by a massive 30 points, basically Trump country on steroid.
So while Trump and Republicans are getting booed, what's Donald Trump doing? It's weekend at Bernie's. It's a vacation time for Donald Trump. Right-wing propaganda right now in America, state regime-run media, they're trying to desperately cover up for Donald Trump because they know the American people are pissed. They thought the American people were stupid. As the Patriot Takes account goes, Trump is working hard to lower grocery prices by golfing and reposting Marjorie Taylor Greene saying, this is what homeschooling looks like in Georgia's 14th.
But when Self started defending his MAGA positions, his own constituents unleashed a tsunami of boos that nearly blew the roof off the place. You've got to see this footage. The camera pans across the room, showing angry faces of lifelong Republicans. Not some bust-in liberal protesters, but actual conservative voters screaming, "Do your job," at their representative. One elderly woman stood up and shouted, "We elected you to represent us, not to be Trump's lapdog." The place erupted in applause. These are the same people who had Trump signs in their yards just a few years ago.
The White House is posting images like this photo of J.D. Vance sitting on his girlfriend a couch, and the White House account says, the White House account goes, have you said thank you once? All President Zelensky said that he was not willing to say is that Putin is a good guy, because Putin is killing Ukrainians en masse and unlawfully invaded Ukraine. President Zelensky said thank you repeatedly to the people of the United States of America. Even though he shouldn't say thank you to Donald Trump and Vance, he said thank you repeatedly.
And Self isn't alone in facing this musical accompaniment of disapproval. Across the country, MAGA Republicans are getting the same treatment. In North Carolina, Virginia, and even deep red Alabama, Republican representatives are walking into town halls only to be greeted with the soundtrack of their political careers ending. One Republican voter in Alabama was caught on mic saying, "I've voted Republican my whole life, but this Trump cult has gone too far." The MAGA Boo Tour then took an international turn, heading north to Toronto for a WWE event. Just the mention of America triggered massive boos from the Canadian crowd. Why? Maybe because Trump recently threatened to annex Canada and slap them with crippling tariffs. Nothing says great diplomacy like threatening to invade your peaceful neighbor who's been your ally for over a century. The damage is real. Canadian tourism officials report bookings to the US have dropped 15% since Trump's threats, with many Canadians actively boycotting American products. One Toronto resident interviewed said, "We've always loved visiting the States, but if Trump's going to treat us like an enemy, we'll spend our money elsewhere." Great job, Donald. Alienating our nicest neighbors who also happen to be our largest trading partner. Meanwhile, back in Washington, the White House social media team is busy posting cringe-worthy photos of JD Vance demanding Ukraine's president say thank you for American aid, because nothing says we support democracy like making a wartime president grovel for help against a Russian invasion. Real classy stuff.
They figured they elected Donald Trump, so maybe American people wouldn't realize that the Trump GOP budget gets rid of Medicaid, basically, of what, $880 billion, but the billionaires get $4.5 trillion in tax cuts. And so here's Fox trying really hard with its propaganda, saying, look,
Luxembourg doesn't have the weapons to give them.
I think we got to get back to the central point. I think the most important point that Donald Trump made in this whole thing, he said, you are gambling with World War III.
Yep.
So with all this backlash mounting, where exactly is the Orange Commander-in-Chief while his movement collapses around him? Is he addressing these concerns? Is he trying to repair relationships with our allies? Is he working to win back the voters he's losing? Nope. He's golfing. That's right. Footage from last weekend shows Trump cruising around in his golf cart, working on his swing while his proposed budget cuts $880 billion from Medicaid, $400 billion from education, and $300 billion from farmers. But don't worry, billionaires get $4.5 trillion in tax cuts. Because priorities. One former Trump voter from Pennsylvania summed it up perfectly when he told local news. While my healthcare costs are skyrocketing, Trump's biggest worry is his pudding technique. He's completely out of touch with regular Americans.
Like Benny Johnson going, President Trump at Mar-a-Lago on the phone, working. He's an absolute machine. Fire emoji. Not turning over the Epstein files because we know from what's already been released, Trump's name, based on what was released in 2021, Trump's name is on the flight log. It's like these right-wing influencers who went to the White House on Friday and they were handed like a binder and the binder said Epstein files. And so Trump's trying to cover up.
The contrast couldn't be clearer. Trump swings his golf club while Americans swing toward other options. He practices his drives while driving voters away. All this leisure time doesn't seem to be helping his popularity. A recent poll shows 68% of Americans believe Trump doesn't care about people like me. Gee, I wonder why. And speaking of Trump's mini-me, JD Vance isn't faring much better with the public. The senator recently tried to take a quiet vacation to escape the political heat, but even that plan got derailed by the MAGA Boo Tour. And the MAGA Boo Tour makes its final stop at, wait for it, Wall Street. Yep, even the fat cats in suits are feeling queasy these days. Extreme fear has completely taken over the financial markets, with all three major indexes ending the month looking sadder than Trump's hair in a rainstorm. Even the VYX, Wall Street's official fear meter, hit its highest point of the year. Apparently money does feel emotions. Meanwhile, as the orange turd perfects his golf swing, his buddy Elon Musk is busy calling Social Security the biggest Ponzi scheme of all time. How nice. Nothing says I care about regular Americans like golfing while your tech billionaire friend suggests grandma's monthly check is basically a scam. So whether you're a conservative farmer, a Canadian tourist, or a Wall Street banker, everyone's joining the national chorus of boo. Maybe that's the sound of democracy working after all.